Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar series on leading education in the age of disruption, brought to you by the Development Academy of the Philippines in partnership with the Asian Productivity Organization. I am Yami D from the DAP Center for Governance, and I will be your moderator for this webinar series. The webinar series on leading education in the age of disruption aims to discuss the essential features of Education 4.0 and showcase current education governance trends, practices, and research findings that may contribute to the generation of insights and ideas that could be adopted for policy reform and program implementation for the education sector under the new normal. Before we formally start, allow me to first reiterate some reminders and house rules during this webinar series. All sessions in this webinar series are being recorded and broadcasted live via YouTube for documentation purposes. By joining this webinar, you automatically consent to such recordings. For attendance purposes of our participants, both here at Zoom and at our YouTube channel, kindly type in your name and agency at the chat box. Please put your microphone on mute to minimize background noises and to avoid distraction during the session. Questions will be relayed using the chat box. Kindly type in your complete name and agency along with your question for the open forum. We may request you to speak if necessary. Lastly, presentation materials can be accessed in the webinar series Google Drive using the link flashed in your screen. Our chat monitors will also be posting this link in the chat box. If you will experience difficulty in reading the presented material, you can download it now. Some emails, however, may require special permission on our part to access the files. Before we proceed with today's session, let me do a quick recap on what transpired during webinar session 3 of this series last Thursday, September 10, 2020. Professor Ming Chu, Chair Professor of the Education University of Hong Kong, discussed on modeling online conversations. Professor Chu began his presentation with a model of online conversations that has 3 stages: prepare, talk or chat, and evaluate. During the prepare stage, we should be able to clearly distinguish between in-class and online instruction. We should also have a clear assessment of the technology environment of both teachers and students, and a clear understanding of our students and their needs. Under talk or chat, Professor Chu provided us with sample approaches with which we can use in the delivery of online classes. He also highlighted some useful applications that we can adopt, such as the use of Google Docs and automated tools for transcription, categorization, annotation, coding, and statistical analysis. Lastly, under evaluate, he discussed on implications of online learning and approaches for students, parents and family, teachers, schools, and government. This is also the stage wherein teachers reflect on their approaches and revise as necessary. During the open forum, a question was forwarded about pedagogy and technology. According to our participant, studies and articles prior to the pandemic had cited pedagogy before technology. That is, technology is just a tool, and even without it, pedagogy can still be effective. However, in our current circumstance of online learning, can it really be safely said that pedagogy is becoming highly dependent on technology? In response to this, Professor Chu said, pedagogy is always important. When we do face-to-face, we do not need technology to have an effective lesson. But once you're online, you have to think differently about technology. It is not about to use or not to use technology, but how to use it. That is, which technology is useful, what content should be learned, and what do you know about your students. It is not only understanding pedagogy and technology, but also understanding your students. The chain of events following the directives of the government as part of the nation's efforts to contain the spread of the COVID-19 virus has tested our resilience and adaptability to new norms. Teachers, among others, had to adjust to the new ways. particularly in instruction and in the attainment of target learning outcomes. In our session this afternoon, we will rethink what should be taught to pre-service teachers and how to effectively assist the change and development of in-service teachers. Our resource speaker will also share tips on how best to maximize the benefits from collaboration with the non-education sector, whose roles in education provision has increased with the pandemic. While you have already met our resource speaker today during our second webinar session, please allow me to introduce her again. Our resource speaker is an associate professor and leader of the Education Policy Research Cluster at the Education University of Hong Kong. She had her bachelor's degree at Korea University, master's degree at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and doctorate at King's College London. She's a fellow of the East-West Center in the US and of the Higher Education Academy in the UK. She is also the immediate past president of the Comparative Education Society of Hong Kong. Drawing on her various publications, she invented a framework to diagnose and evaluate the effectiveness of plans, implementation and outcome of education reforms, and teacher education and development programs. She directly advised over 1,600 people from 60 plus countries, including policymakers and teacher educators. Her advisory is grounded on her hands-on experience of teaching and teacher education in the four contexts of Korea, US, UK, and Hong Kong. Our resource speaker has made a slight change to the title of her presentation to provide a more relevant context. To deliver webinar session 4 on preparing teachers for the age of disruption, working with third parties, let us welcome once again Dr. Tai-hee Choi. Dr. Choi?
Yes. Hello, everyone. It is really great to see you all again. I can see some of you familiar faces from the last session. And as Yemi just introduced, we will today discuss what is needed in terms of pre-service teacher education and also in-service teacher education. We will briefly review what is already being done fundamentally, like as a core, but what kind of things we have to change if we want to adapt to these changes happening around us in terms of the entire global social changes, but also because of this COVID-19 and such kind of disruptions. So let me share my screen of the PowerPoint. So hopefully everybody is looking at my slides. Can you? Okay, let me check. Somebody, not yet. Can anyone say in the either in chat room or through verbal communication that whether you can see the, okay, thank you very much, Maria. Okay, so let's start then. I will, of course, talk about education 4.0, but also we will also broaden our perspective to dealing with the disruptions at large. So that's why I changed the topic a little bit, but we will also talk about the COVID-19 induced school closure and also online or remote learning as a result. We will start with thinking about what is teaching. We all talk about teaching and learning throughout this webinar the whole time, but I thought maybe we need to think about what is expecting from teaching after all, because that will affect our expectation, assumptions, and future goals as well. Then we will briefly talk about initial teacher education, the common traditional ones, and also preparation for the social changes in general and the disruptions. In-service teacher education. And then because of the roles getting bigger, the working with third parties, because now, for instance, we are having NGOs, international organizations, as well as local volunteers who try to help to overcome this difficulty. So we will think about how we can best work with them at teacher and school level, as well as government level. So as promised, let's think about what teaching is. And for this, I thought this video will help us. So are you seeing my video of the, let me see, let me stop share and then share screen again with this video. So can you see this video now? Hopefully you can see that. Let's see. Yes, okay, great, thank you. So I'll play this video. While you are watching this, please think about what you expect of teaching in schooling and education, education in general, like in tertiary education as well. And what you are thinking about, like when you think about the word teachers, what comes to your mind? Who do we want as our teacher? So listen, please.
Feel the pressure.
Dear Lila.
Dear Joey.
Dear first year me.
Hola.
Hey, kid.
Remember when Dad said that the first 6 months of anything is the hardest? Well, that is completely true here.
Everything is going to be okay. Things may seem tough right now, and at times you may feel like you want to give up, but please don't.
Just know that you'll make a great teacher.
You are probably wondering, why in the world did I ever get into this profession?
Just take a deep breath. I know that everything feels overwhelming, terrifying even, but you're going to make it through this.
Those kids in front of you, they want to learn. They need to know. Try every crazy thing you think of. In the end, those are the things that they'll remember.
Your students need you there in front of the class, and they truly appreciate all that you do for them, even if they don't show it all of the time.
You'll have trouble the first day of school with a student throwing a book at you. It'll miss, but don't worry. That student will come back 5 years later, introduce you to his new family, and thank you for having his back all the time, even after that first day.
When a kid says your class is boring, don't take it personally. It happens to everyone.
Holding your kids accountable is the greatest act of love you can give them.
Teaching is never an exact science, and it's okay to struggle to find the answers.
This is one of the most important lessons to learn as a teacher. You will fail, you will make mistakes, and you will embarrass yourself. When you do, accept it with grace and humility.
And don't be afraid to ask for or admit you need help.
You will also learn that you never stop learning to become the teacher you wanted to be on day one. I want you to know that what you expected to happen on the first day of school won't happen until maybe the 3rd, 4th, or even 18th year of your teaching.
Lives and futures depend on you. It's scary and exhilarating.
And you will know that this is exactly where you need to be.
No matter what you might think, you are doing a good job. Through it all, the good and the bad, just trust yourself.
It's gonna be okay. And 7 years later, you're still gonna love coming to work every day.
So keep up the great work, seek help from those around you, and just know that the work of the teacher is of the greatest in your future. So.
Okay, so I hope that this video kind of helped us to think about, okay, what do we mean by teaching? And like how we want our teachers to be developing and then changing. And also now I would like to go to the slides, back to the slides, because I want you to, because you have thought about, okay, what kind of teachers we want and what teaching should be like. I would like you to share your views through this new space called Mentimeter. Last time I introduced the software called Answer Garden, where you could see the word bubbles, right? And today we're using Mentimeter. I'm kind of trying to use the loop of doing actually like experiencing this kind of learning, interactive learning, while we are doing this session about interactive learning through online. So let's use this new space of Mentimeter, and you can access this through this code, QR code, or you can use this link. I already asked the team to share this link in the, yes, thank you, Leslie, for sharing this link. So you can click the link to get access to this space, or you can use the QR code where you can share what you think is teaching. Like last time, please use like say 2 to 3 words to share what you think teaching is, what we want our teachers to do. Okay, I will give you about a couple of minutes to think about this and share your views. So now I will share. I'll share the. Can you see the space? What is teaching? Can you see the words that coming up? Yes, that's great. So we can see a lot of, so we can see that the most popular view is about sharing. Many of us are thinking that after all, teaching is sharing. And also we can see transfer of knowledge or sharing of knowledge. It is noblest profession and it facilitates learning. We need passion. We learn through mentoring. And what else do we see? Love, yes, of course. And it is facilitating students to learn. And there are also other words like skills development, fountain of wisdom, help to transform. But I guess the most common keys that are shared by our participant is love and sharing, passion, touching the lives. Okay. Yes, I guess we can really see, after all, we don't think it is just giving knowledge to students, but actually we are trying to help them build their like career, life, become a better person. And to do that, we need to engage emotionally with them, right? And also it is not just one directional, but it involves our students doing something rather than us teachers do something. So the perspective is also learner-centered, not us teacher-centered. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. It is great to see where you are. And also now I will go back to then our slides to see. So we just saw that teaching, it involves, as you have shown, that it is not just about knowledge, but it is more about, let me change the view. It is more about touching their lives, and then trying to help them do something, help our learners to do something rather than us doing something. And to do that, we need to attend to their needs, their feelings. And then what I noticed from this video is that also the video shows that teachers, who they are, they're actually individuals who are struggling to do their best. They may not succeed in what they want to do at the beginning, but through continuous learning, they are going toward their goals more closer, right? And before we engage in further discussion, I would like to emphasize that good teaching, or what teachers should be like, is really culture bound. It is not really neutral, but it is dependent upon the expectation from the society and the culture. And it is also depend upon time. For instance, in this time of emergency and disruption, teachers are expected to find ways to continue teaching, addressing the needs of all students under this special condition. And in some societies, teachers are asked to just simply follow authorities' goals, whereas in other societies, the teachers are asked to autonomously set goals and then write their own materials and then achieve their goals. So we have to think about this subjectivity and also time boundness about what is expected about being a good teacher. So against this background, what should pre-service teachers learn? We'll briefly review the common content that are often observed in programs across countries. So as some of us have pointed out, we can see that it is, of course, it requires knowledge. So we are teaching our teachers how to teach better, what is the best pedagogy. And then also math teachers learn about the math, science teachers learn about the recent development of science, etc. But also we teach them how to incorporate this knowledge into the skills. And also they are required to learn various skills such as communication, dealing with conflicts. But they also, even though we do not really cover this in the curriculum often, but more it is expected to be taught through other experiences, we expect them to be ethical practitioners. So we, especially because they are, when they are teaching young learners, because the students cannot protect themselves, they do not know what is wrong or right. So this ethical aspect is very important. And as we thought about previously, it is not me doing something as a teacher, but about others, helping others to do something. That's why some people call it pedagogic content knowledge. So content knowledge itself is not really all, but they need to use their knowledge to teach according to the level of the student and readiness. And also that this is also involving the usual general pedagogic knowledge, like developing the curriculum or conducting individual lessons and building good positive atmosphere. Of course, conducting lessons, you have to learn how to set up tasks and run the activities, how to grade the language so that the students who are not ready to understand the complex concepts can easily get access to the content. They need to evaluate lesson, and then they know how to self-evaluate their sessions and then decide the next goals. These are all about the goals within classroom or school, but there are additional roles such as dealing with the government by knowing up-to-date understanding of the educational laws and regulations. And for instance, right now in the Philippines, you have this new innovation that is being really quickly promoted. And also you have to know how to collaborate with the parents, community partners. You have to be a good citizen. You have to be committed to your profession as well. All these should be taught through this program. And also, as I said, we have to know how to teach what you know. For instance, as a native speaker of English, you might know how to pronounce a word, but that is not enough. You have to be able to listen to students' pronunciation, then find where the error lies when the pronunciation is not correct, then how to correct that without hurting the students' feelings, and then help them produce the right one. So therefore, this our program of teacher education deals with not just the knowledge itself, but how to deliver it, how to help foster students to become a good user of the knowledge, whether it is art, PE, like physical education, or science, etc. Then we also have to now deal with not just that kind of traditional knowledge, but other things as well. Why? Because we have this entire global changes happening, which is well captured in this video. So I will share this video with you. So that we can reflect on what kind of changes we are dealing with right now. So let me play this video. About the changes that we are facing. Okay, hopefully this is giving us some idea about what we want, what we need in terms of teacher education, right? So let's go back to our slides. And I wonder what changes you have noticed from this video. I think we can see that the rapid speed of the change. Also, some of the job markets are also changing. A lot of speedy changes in technology. That's why we're doing this Education 4.0. and also global connections. Like we also saw that 1/4 of the labor market is actually conducted, especially outsourcing, is taken by Indians, which means that we are globally connected and we have to deal with multiple culture. So this kind of changes, because of that, we are also dealing with a lot of news. That's why we are bringing in these new skills to face the continuous changes. So that's why we are bringing in the 21st century skills such as creativity, collaborative skills, communicative abilities, and that's why we are emphasizing lifelong learning. As shown in the video, we really do not know what will happen in 10 years or 20 years. We are now talking about 4G, 5G, but we don't know what will happen in the next stage and how things will be different. As you can see from the first session, the production, the industry, quite much of that is already being replaced by AI, not human labor, right? That's why we have to really be aware of the uncertainty. Other than those things that were covered in the video, we are also thinking about, I would like to introduce the fact that nowadays the education itself is linked globally, especially because of the transnational bodies such as World Bank, OECD, and UN, and then World Bank. They are issuing the mandates that should be followed within a block. And they are also generating big data, which compares the education in a like very easy to understand way in terms of like a relative strengths and weaknesses that makes the governments to follow the agenda of the international organizations. And also, we also can see the influence of the private sector in public education is getting bigger, not just in terms of having the educational institute like administration and having the schools, but also in terms of the logic. The business logic is adopted by the education sector, and that is affecting how people deal with each other. For instance, now teachers are considered as service providers, whereas students and parents are considered as consumers, and the relationship is changing. And also the voices of the private sector is reflected in the national government level policies as well as individual schools' delivery of curriculum. And in this context, we can also see that even though there is this merging of educational practices, there are also the speed differences or scale differences. The same ideas are adopted in across the societies and countries, but because of the context and the people, the history, the culture, as we discussed in the first session of mine, the same reform ideas become something different and they change at a different speed. Last time I compared how Korean society is like so fast paced, whereas in Hong Kong, things are planned like ahead 5 years, 7 years beforehand. And some impacts are predicted. For instance, we are comparing and looking at other countries because we think that the ideas from other countries, if we adopt them, the advancement of our education can be speeded. However, some impacts we can't really expect. For instance, when we were adopting this business logic, we didn't want our relationship between teacher and student to be customer and service provider. But this is happening and we can't really do much about that. So when we are adopting changes, especially when we are thinking about the curriculum of in-service teachers. Of course, it is important to teach them new up-to-date knowledge, but at the same time, we want to think about the delayed impact. For instance, do we really want the relationship between student and teachers to be more like, service provider and customer? And also we need to prepare teachers for both the predictable and unpredictable things, because some things we don't even know. Like we didn't know that the COVID-19 will appear and lead to school closure and like rush us to adapt to this remote learning suddenly without much preparation. The government or school leaders, they need to keep track of global changes, because the things in another country is no longer a story of faraway land, but it may at least hit us sooner or later. And also then, in preparation for a disruption, what can we teach? Because now we know that this kind of changes can happen without any warning. And now we are talking about global warming. We are talking about sudden change of population composition, like a new immigrant, etc., etc. Then what should we do? We talked about last time the nature of the changes. It expects us to respond urgently and the need to create new resources very suddenly. And also, we are now dealing with multi-parties that we never had to deal with at the school level or at the government level. Teachers are required to do something that they have never done or they were never prepared for. And these sudden changes always create the gap between the haves and have-nots. So we have to pay attention to the equity issues, pay attention to how new vulnerable groups emerge and how to help them. And the whole system is under tension in this like a new context. So how we can prepare our teachers, that's what we need to think about in this session. So previously, I provided the general pedagogy, which was more about teaching content. But we also need to think about preparing our teachers or future teachers in terms of these contingencies that can include the ability to convert the curriculum to be easily delivered when traditional mode is disrupted, like how we can do it, for instance, through a remote way. If online is not available, how we can do like face-to-face without really keeping the social distancing requirement. Individual lessons, we need to help teachers to be versatile so that they can easily move between the changes, because like now the schools are in some contexts like open and closed like repeatedly. And then they also need to be able to support students' social and emotional well-being in this kind of disrupted era. They should be able to use different apps, etc., to engage them and then help them, help the learners to have deeper knowledge, not just like factual knowledge, or encourage interaction, which is rather difficult. And then evaluate the lesson under this new context and think about themselves and then how to develop themselves quickly with agility. So these are all the things that is required because of this disrupted era. Up to now, we have discussed what should be added to in-service education and what do we want actually from education. I think it is a good time for us to stop my presentation for a while and then get some questions if you have any right now, because I don't want to just go on and try to see like how things are, like whether anything there was new or if these are all old knowledge you already know. Do you want to see some like application of this discussion? What do you think? could we share your views? You could use chat box, or you could unmute yourself and then share your question.
I think we have a question here, Dr. Choi,
Yes.
from Ms. Tumalon of DepEd, Department of Education, Division of Bohol. In a range of 1 to 10, how will you rate the readiness of ASEAN countries in the readiness of 21st century education?
Which country? Can you repeat?
I think ASEAN countries.
ASEAN.
ASEAN.
ASEAN. Okay. Sorry, I thought it was ASEAN, but Asian. Okay. Okay. My principle is all the readiness should be assessed within the context. However, I know that the question meant in terms of like a relative strengths, and then in comparison to other countries, like for instance OECD countries, right? Even within ASEAN countries, there are differences across countries. I know, and also even within countries, for instance, as I said last time, when I was doing the consultation for Cambodia, I could see that in some remote area, like they don't even have the building for schools. So they have to like use makeshift buildings to conduct lessons. I mean, if we really look at just in terms of the infrastructure, I guess, well, no country is perfect. So let's say some countries are at like 8, like in consideration of their expectation or target. And with that goal of those leading countries in terms of infrastructure, Asian countries, they would be somewhere between 3 to 6, maybe. However, I think in terms of, I mean, like you gave a very good quote from Professor Chu from the last session. It is not about like whether to use it, but it is about how to use it. So in terms of how to use it, I guess we are kind of very at a similar position. When we have really like good infrastructure, what the expectation and what it offers is that very different. But when we have the infrastructure, like you are now building the infrastructure, then utilizing that structure and doing teaching, you can even get 10 points for that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, after all, we have to do with what we have. Of course, we aspire things and aim high, but after all, as you shared in the very beginning through the Mentimeter, the hardcore is making students become learners. And that comes with your passion and care. ICT is one route toward tool. So I guess how to use it will decide what point you will get. You can even get 10 points even in a very limited circumstances, I think.
Okay, we have another question from the YouTube channel. This says, what are the current practice of your university in terms of teaching internship of pre-service teachers?
Okay, I guess it is not very different, but anyway, so the question concerns like attachment practice, or does the person want to know about the whole structure of pre-service education? Can you clarify? I'm sorry.
Current practice of internship
Okay, so it means attachment. We call it attachment or field experience. So from a couple of years ago, like before, the students were attached to school twice, but now they only need to do it once. And I mean, the other way around. Now they have to do twice, but the first time they just explore what school is like. They don't stay in school very much. But then after that, they do a proper attachment of one full term. And typically they are given teaching of about 20 hours face-to-face, and then them leading or with or without the mentors teaching. If your question concerns the practice in this disrupted era, we now created a system of 3-tier attachment system because of the disruption. So they do micro teaching, which means they are just practice teaching without students or with their peers as students. They record it and they submit several of them. Then if the school resumes online teaching, they are asked to teach online. If the school resumes face-to-face, they at least have to do one face-to-face assessment. Of course, the whole teaching of whatever forms, if they like the entire period, they have to engage with the school, whether it is just admin or doing tutorial, whatever possible, because as you can see, the schools are really under extreme stress. So as a teacher education institute, we do not want the schools to be stressed out like additionally, but at the same time, we have to think about the accountability and then the readiness of our graduates. That's why we are asking them to do all these things. Whereas in the normal time, the students usually visit the school, stay there for 2 weeks in year 3, where we have a 5-year of degree. And then in year 4 or 5, depending on their program or their or a lot of like different interaction with their personal commitment, etc., then they stay half a year in the individual schools and then done face-to-face.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Choi. So let me just call another participant. This is Jean Solas Lasquete of Department of Education, Mimaropa region. Ma'am, can you read your question for Dr. Choi?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for shared knowledge a while ago. Mine is just a question on behavior and values orientation. I think it's also about attitudes of learners, given this situation where learners, where teachers are facing the predictable and unpredictable changes in education. Thank you so much.
You mean their students, like student teachers' behaviors or students' behaviors?
The issues on behavior, values, and attitudes of learners.
Here, the learners mean student-teacher learner or real students in schools, like kids, children.
Ms. Lasquete?
If you mean the behavior, attitude, emotion of the students, school children, it really depends on the level of their years. It seems the senior year students adjust a bit better than young learners. The young learners, especially, they don't even know that they are stressed. So it is really important for the schools or the government to train the caregivers or parents to notice the distress sign of the young learners, especially if they are doing online learning. The exposure the time of exposure to the screen that is really impactful. And recently, Khan Academy, there was a research report showing that the students really need to, the school shouldn't try to replicate the face-to-face learning in online learning. Because if you make students, for instance, like 8 hours of learning through online fully, that distresses students, they can't learn, that affects them emotionally as well, and they have like a behavioral symptoms such as ADHD. So we don't want, we need to limit the time, screen time. So if it is like say 40-minute teaching session, 20 minutes face-to-face, I mean through Zoom, then other 20 minutes should lead the students to do some activities offline. That kind of arrangement should be made because it affects the students. If it is about student teachers affection and behavior, the students are also very much distressed, especially if they are attached to a school, if they are in a field experience, because there are too many uncertainties and too many contingencies. They have to deal with the tension that is arising in school, as well when they are already very stressed out because they are assessed, and which affects their certification, graduation, future job prospect, etc. Yeah, anyways.
All right, so perhaps we'll have one more, Dr. Choi, this is from the Commission on Higher Education. So the question of Mr. Juan Petrola is the manner to which the curricula for teacher education programs affect the quality of teacher education graduates reflect the readiness of teacher education institutions to implement the curricula. Based on your experience, how could teacher quality be strengthened considering teacher qualifications and standards?
There are multi-level interventions that can be done if it is not yet done. I'm not quite sure about the teacher education system here. So to give the example of South Korea, for instance, there are regular appraiser of teacher education institutes, and the curriculum, curriculum content, pedagogy, the expectation, the standards are decided by law, by the law, education law, because the country thinks that it is really important to ensure that the curriculum is up to date, and then all teachers who graduate from educational universities have similar standards. The standards being decided, whether these standards are met by the institutes, teacher education institutes, is another matter. That's why there are regular appraisal. And if you fail, like there are several categories, and then if the institute fails and then considered as not meeting the standard, they are given a warning and time to fix it. Depending on the issue, they will be given different time frame to fix the issue. And if the issue is not fixed within that time frame, then their license to give certificate will be canceled. And so having a clear expectation and then regulating the teacher education program, as well as the teachers, individual teacher candidates, they are required to obtain certificate either through teacher education institutes if they have majored subjects, as I think it will be the same across any country. They will be expected to obtain another degree, a double degree or additional degree, master's or anything. So then the individuals have to prove their capacity through their written test, micro teaching that is assessed, and then also their essay test where they express their teaching philosophy, and they are also given a real situation that like the problems that can face in classrooms, such as two students are fighting, or there is a cheating in the exam, whatever. They are given this kind of like situations, then they are asked to explain how they will deal with these kind of situations. So and also the teaching, micro teaching will be assessed by different people of different expertise, like the subject teacher, professors, and also etc., so that they can be like assessed in a multi way, from multi perspective. And also they have to show that they are sound in their mind before they can apply for this job. And also when they want to become a teacher, they have to take another national exam to be dispatched to schools, the public schools. So it is like a multi-layer of screening out of the candidates.
Okay, so we do have a number of questions here. Would you like to proceed, Dr. Choi?
Okay.
May we call Mr. Benedicto Militante to raise his question to Dr. Choi?
Hello.
So I have this question because based on our experience here in Region 8, we have enrollees who are degree holders. So we consider them as enrolled in diploma courses, diploma in teaching secondary, who wanted to earn at least 18 units. They are nurses, they are engineers who wanted to earn a degree in the teaching profession and wanted also to get an item in our present scenario. So what do you think is the best model for these degree holders in fulfilling the job as teachers, coming from different fields of specializations, who wanted to become teachers? Because I know somehow it affects on the kind of training they have, the way they teach, as giving an impact to the kind of students that we have at present. So what do you think, Ma'am Choi, is the best model for this kind of students, set of students who are degree holders who wanted to earn a teaching degree or a license to become professional teacher? Thank you.
Okay. I can be political and say that everything goes, but I think I cannot. So I will be honest, which can be very dangerous. But anyways, these days, many countries are like lowering down the standards for a person to enter the profession. And a lot of times they are not even required to have a degree. And they, as you said, some people with like recognition in another field, such as like a scientist, who are considered as a good candidate for science teachers. And then veterans from the military, they are considered like say good teachers for discipline masters, whatever. And while it is good to tap into the resources of these people, like they have their own expertise, but as I discussed at the very beginning, them having that kind of knowledge doesn't necessarily mean that they are good teachers. And also nowadays around the world, another model that is really being emphasized is the practice aspect. So some countries abolished teacher educational institutes, and then they asked the teacher education to happen in schools. And they asked the candidates to follow through the mentoring of individual teachers. That aspect really, it can work out for born teachers, I should say that. But the theoretical aspect of teaching philosophy, looking at themselves, like learning about themselves, and thinking about social issues, this kind of like a area that is not applicable right away in class, they will become the, what should I say, lamp for like lighthouse for a boat in the ocean. So when there are many changes, the teachers who have gotten educational degrees, rather than just like some hours of training and then having subject degrees, and without having sought any like educational like issues, or didn't think about their philosophy, then they are often left to struggle. So I'm not saying that we have to close the door, because we really need to tap into this kind of like resources. But maybe in addition to having a training, like some hours of training to like learn the practical skills of teaching, maybe they can be given some kind of probational year where they are given the room to think about, reflect on their teaching, rather than like dropping them into the deep water and then ask them to be a full-time teacher, and just like with the subject knowledge and some skills that they learned in a short program, and then just to do teaching. Because to be a good teacher and like caring teacher, it is the matter of heart, and it requires some time of reflection. So I guess we need to give them some time for them to be reflective upon themselves as a teacher, to figure out their teaching philosophy, to learn about themselves as a teacher. That will be required, whatever form it is. I don't know whether it answers your question.
All right. So, yes.
I guess we will continue and then get the answers at the end, because I still have some content to cover. I mean, like, we can always discuss, but then also the information may incite other questions as well.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So do we want to have a break now, or maybe we can have a break in the latter part, because there is another topic change in the middle. So maybe we can have a like break later, and I will just resume this session. So before we talked about how to prepare our pre-service teachers, now let's think about in-service teachers. As we are all aware, in-service teachers, for them, learning is just mostly updating, because they already come with the basic knowledge and they have developed their own skills. So it is for them, learning is more about learning what to improve further. So for this discussion, I would like you to share through this poll what you think will lead teachers to change and develop. I would like you to invite you to go back to this Mentimeter activity. This time you can do a poll. As before, you can use the same link you used to go back to this activity, or you can, so let me change the slide. Okay, so you can either use the same QR code or the link that I shared previously through the chat box. So could you please go there and then do the poll? So I guess you are watching this poll. So the options, like, of course, you can choose multiple answers as well. The things that I listed are attending seminars, personal reading, chatting with other teachers, trial and errors, observing others' lessons, and through reflection. Are you seeing my the space? Can you see the graph? Oops. Stop sharing. And I think I'll see chat box. I think yes, Dr. Okay, that's great. Okay, I'll go back to the space and then share again. So let's see what we are thinking about, what can make our teachers change and develop, in-service teachers. So a lot of us are thinking attending seminars is very important. And then through reflection, some of us are thinking that personal reading, trial and error, and observing others also are helpful. Okay, I can see that many of us are thinking that attending seminars are very important, yes? We will wait 10 more seconds to close the vote. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so I guess many of us are thinking attending seminars are a very good way for us to develop. Yes, I agree. And let's go back to the slides. And then, okay. Slideshow. And then change the slides. Okay. Yes, indeed. We get stimulation through attending this kind of seminars. And this is where we learn new things. And at the same time, these sessions are helpful because there we can learn what we are, like what areas we can develop, what new ideas are there, and help us to review our teaching practice. Whenever we attend seminars, we don't necessarily adopt all of the ideas, but the ones that best suits us and our students. So after all, we can say that what is really needed in terms of teacher development is that it should touch our view of teaching and what kind of teacher we want to be, or what is our view of good teaching. That's why I am saying teacher development is connected with teacher identity development. And all the measures that I shared in the poll actually can be the stimulus for us to think about our current status in terms of pedagogy, and then review what kind of teachers we are now, and whether the goal that is set for us whether it is aligned with us and whether I am ready to do that, etc. So that's why we need to learn about ourselves for us to develop. Without knowing our current status, it is very difficult for us to develop as a teacher. And especially if the new reform is not aligned with what we are thinking about good teaching, we may not necessarily adopt a new practice. For instance, in South Korea, about 10 years ago, when teaching English, the way of teaching English was first suggested to be changed from focusing on reading and listening skills to writing and speaking. Some teachers didn't agree because these skills, productive skills, were not measured in college entrance exam, and they didn't want to follow. So that also affects what we think our students need. Therefore, what I'm trying to say is, if we want our teachers to change, we first have to show that the innovation that we are bringing in is also matching our common goal of bettering the lives of our students. And also, we need to help the teachers to notice the gap. Like sometimes we feel we are good. Like when new pedagogy is suggested, we might think, okay, teaching digitally, it is simply using connecting to the internet and teaching. But then what happens most time when a new society introduces digitally mediated learning, what happens is that the teachers simply share slides and or give some instruction and activities, and then ask the students to upload the outcome of the activity. And there is no interaction. The students are not really asked to engage with in a deeper level. They are just given facts, and they are given like an assessment of or quizzes about very short short answers, or multiple question answers. So these students do not really have the time to make the new knowledge incorporated into their knowledge base. Therefore, we need to help teachers to see the standard level, like what is required, what is involved, and what they are in terms of their current practice. That is induced through reflections, and it can be conducted after they have finished teaching by reflecting on their action through discussion with their colleagues, or writing diaries, looking at their video of teaching, or reflecting in action by immediate responses from students. And therefore, we need to, in a teacher program preparing teachers for innovation, they need to persuade the need and show how to do it. But we also need to understand that pedagogy is involved deeply with emotion. When teachers feel that they are not good enough, they are not successful in terms of their teaching, they are distressed, they lose confidence, they think about leaving the profession, or sometimes they engage in resistance. Therefore, we need to prepare them for the uncertainty and the fact that they will have feeling of distress for a while, but there will be end to this. And because they have to go through trial and error, we have to give the room for them to make errors, because nobody can be perfect. And it is a continuous process of improvement if a new pedagogy is introduced. The same applies to this digitally mediated learning. And usually awareness precedes their development. So we need to help them understand the gap, give time to digest and engage and practice the new pedagogy. And therefore, we have to give realistic time frame. We can't bring a new innovation and think that the teachers will be able to do within a couple of months or something. If we force them to do that, like, you know, when they are not ready and then we ask for the output right away, what we will get as a reform manager is a superficial engagement, such as reporting that they are doing the things, or they do it when they are observed, but they go back to the traditional practice if they are not observed. And also, therefore, we need to give the teachers to think about their practice by encouraging collaboration, reflection, observe others' successful practice, and also using student achievement, like, because after all, what we do as, educational reforms, we want the change in classrooms. So we need to give the ultimate goal in terms of student learning. And the learning should be sustained over time. So we have to give the all support that is necessary. And this should be school-based training, because each school is different in terms of what is available, the readiness of the teachers and readiness of the student for this new pedagogy. And I think this is a good reminder. This video is a very good reminder for us. As a reform manager, we don't want the teachers feel like the ones that are in this video. So let me go to this video. So it is a simple one, but I think it is very helpful for us to think about, especially if you are managing a reform. If you are a school leader, like, because I saw a lot of you are coming from schools of across levels or universities, and also you are as well as you are coming from the education offices. So let me share this video. So I will stop sharing and share this video again. Okay, oops, Daisy. Just a moment. Okay. So let me share this video. Somehow the video goes back to the Yemi. If this time this link doesn't work, can you play it from your side? I'll try once more. Okay, I'll try it once again. Are you viewing the, hopefully this time you are viewing the screen. Are you viewing the screen of the video?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, great.
Yeah, that's me. Hi, I'm Johnson Carson from the Ohio Department of Education. Do you have a moment? Sure, yeah. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you as well. Thank you. So
this person is coming from Education Bureau and visiting a school.
As you're probably aware, according to our new laws, all of your students need new computers to take our new tests. Okay, but we don't have any computers right now, so how much are we going to get by those? How much what? You know, money. Money? You don't don't need money. We're already funding you for complying with our regulations by putting pictures of milk up in the cafeteria.
But that's not enough to, buy hundreds of computers. I guess that's fine. We can increase taxes in that district. Let me just take another.
Wait, don't write that down.
Why not?
We're moving to a digital system. Use a computer. This is the 21st century, for God's sake.
We still don't have computers.
You'll receive funding for the computers if you do well on the new digital tests. Have a good day, Mr. Fredericks.
Wait, how do we do well on the tests if we don't have computers? Hello?
So I guess the message of this video is quite clear. Even though we want the changes to happen, we cannot force the schools without really giving the necessary support to do that. So that's what I wanted to share. And then when we are introducing new reform, we also need to think about
Grammarly does more than catch errors.
Just a moment.
You can find really good, no, perfect words.
Sorry. I guess because it is raining today, the connection is not very good. And then the first one was played just now. Apologies for that. I'll go back to the video. I mean, the slide. So when we are leading a new innovation, we need to give the proper support, and that includes the teacher training. And the training should be given customized to the reform we are bringing in. Some of the reforms can be just sending out the notices, letting them know that something will happen. In that case, we just need to inform them. And then, for instance, if we are bringing in new interface, then we can just explain that this will be new interface for a learning activities. And that will happen for those young teachers. What I'm trying to say is that as well as the reform feature itself, the readiness of individual schools and individual teachers should be also considered. So for instance, a new pedagogy using blended learning, it can be, as I explained previously, a simple matter for a young generation, whereas for those who are not really experienced in digitally mediated teaching, that would require some time to learn about the practice and then best practice, and then engage in the practice, get feedback from peers and mentors before they can stand up by themselves. Some reforms, they are not really requiring much skills, but they can create a lot of conflict. For instance, when teacher evaluation in South Korea was revised in the way that the evaluation was conducted not just by the supervisors, but peer teachers, parents, and students, teachers resisted a lot. Obviously, we can understand it, right? And therefore, the government had to persuade the teachers over 10 years before they can actually start the reform, because everybody was unhappy and they were really worried about the repercussions, teachers. And other times, and this is the most of the reforms, education reforms, for some teachers, they need to be persuaded the value of the reform and then be taught how to do it, how to, like, what are the expectations and how to meet the expectation. So that's why, like, to see the case of Hong Kong, like, for instance, when the schools were asked to do other learning experiences, which means the engage in students learning outside of schools, some schools have been already doing it. So you can see that case school 1 here, they think it was just simply a matter of introduction of this new policy, but repeating, doing what they, continuing what they have been doing. Whereas in school too, they found it really complex and unnecessary. So the leaders had difficult time to persuade the teachers of the value. And sometimes the leaders can make misjudgment. It can be at school level or at the government level. So when we are training teachers to adopt a change, the same reform of school-based assessment in informing the college entrance, school one thought it was just too difficult and it is not aligned with their philosophy of the school. Whereas school two thought it was an easy matter and then they didn't have any problems. However, later they had realized that it was so difficult and they had a lot of complaints from students and teachers. So they had a lot of emotional costs and then also fixing the existing errors. Whereas this school, which considered the reform, realized the complexity and difficulty of the reform, started small, started with discussing the matter with the entire staff in the school. Then they started like a step by step, year by year, subject by subject, so that when, even though they started late and then the progress was late, they had no problem and everybody involved, including students and parents, were very happy. And because they had good name in this matter, in fact, the EDB, counterpart of Education Bureau, Department of Education, they were willing to listen to the advice of this school and revise the scheme. So we can see that not just introducing changes right away in a large scale, it is important to gather opinion from teachers, get their localized understanding of the changes and prepare for them, and then introduce the changes step by step, year by year, subject by subject, and have a open school, lead school, then scale up to the entire region. That is the best way to introduce changes, even in terms of in-service teacher education. And during this disruption, I got some questions from you last time. What you want in terms of what we can do in terms of changing teachers and then preparing teachers during the pandemic. So I would like to introduce the case of some countries like Korea, China, Thailand, New Zealand, and United Kingdom. They provided the in-service teacher education through online space. And what they did was they involved volunteer teachers as well as the government officials, because they realized that the resources cannot be created suddenly. And then also the knowledge cannot be trained within a short time, the blended learning. So they recruited the teachers who are already good, asked them to share their materials and skills and tips. And then they quickly realized from the discussion online that they don't only need daily lesson plans or activities, but they need to engage students. So they started to share games and then learning videos, but also gave live Q&A and one-on-one consultation, both for students and teachers. So that, and these were coordinated by the government, but it involved multiple sectors of both organizations and individuals. And in terms of this teaching, as we repeatedly discussed across the sessions, it involves families' roles, like huge role, especially young learners. So we need to train families, like the caregivers, as well as teachers. That's why some schools in some states or countries, they are creating these resources for parents. And this is the resource created by my university. And you can see that they are offering the tips both in English, but also local languages, so that the parents who can't speak English can also access the materials and help them. And NGOs and other volunteers, they are also joining hands. So what is the emerging lesson for teacher educators? We have to think about the complex roles, new expectations that is given to the teachers. So we have to be also caring about emotional well-being of teachers as well. And the vulnerable students should be taken care of. And non-education sectors help is also very needed, because we can't have the resources or certain training programs if like the governments or the schools or universities are trying to do everything. It is not really possible. For the senior management of each institute as well as Department of Education, I suggest that we need to strike a balance between flexibility and compliance. Because while it is important to keep the accountability, the contingencies require us to be to do things new, and there are problems that we didn't expect. So we have to allow some flexibility and support teachers during COVID to by like waiving some evaluation requirements, like delaying some of the like assessment, providing guidance, etc. And then giving formative feedback for those teachers who have to do something that they were not trained to do so. We have about 30 minutes. Before we go to the last half of the session, last quarter of the session, could we have a break? After that, we will have a brief Q&A, and then we will start the last part of the session. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, so let's have a 2-minute break. See you soon. Okay, welcome back to the session. Let's see. So did you have some stretching? Are you ready to go for the final session? Okay. So in this, maybe we can, because of the time, maybe I will share what I prepared, and then we will have the Q&A at the end. I think that's better than, because it is already like 25 minutes too. So let me go back to our slides. And then switch the video. Okay. I think we agree that these days the role of the outsiders is becoming bigger, especially in this kind of like emergency situation. I learned that in the Philippines, for instance, USAID is now trying to help with continuing education under this disruption. And they are conducting projects and partnership with different parties. They are, and then also Save the Children Philippines. They are doing teacher training on digital education and how to innovate teaching, and then how to use technology to do that. They are also helping with inclusive education or justice and peace education, because they are also working together with a conflict area in the Philippines. There are other associations, organizations, international and local, that are helping with this COVID-19 related school closure. So I would like to discuss now briefly about how we can work best with third parties, both at the school and government level. When we are bringing in outsiders in provision of education, we need to think about different issues, which can be summed up into quality and equity issues. The reason I am talking about quality is because the third parties, even though they know what we do not know, they do not know what we know. What I mean is that, after all, schools, teachers, and education department, we know better what our students need or what they are ready for. The outsiders, they come with their knowledge, but the knowledge is built in their own context. So it is our role to communicate the gap between what is being suggested and what can be possible in our context, and what is further needed, what kind of support is needed for us. Close communication is needed to align what is being suggested by outsiders and what is being conducted in schools. Of course, I'm not saying that we should resist the changes, but there should be scaffolding. You cannot jump from 1 to 10. You need to go one by one. So what is needed? Where are you? That knowledge, only you have it in terms of student readiness, or the resources available, teacher readiness, etc. Equity, it's because outsiders, they do not know. For instance, like at the school level, outsiders can come in and then teach, but because they do not know the history of individual students, when a student is having difficulties or distresses, the outsiders cannot catch, whereas the teacher who has been there and who has been, like living in the same community, they can easily catch the sign of distress and then difficulties. And therefore, that's why we need to be like the local teachers, local experts should be aware of the issues and try to intervene when these like groups of students or individuals are marginalized by the outsiders. And when we are collaborating at whatever level, we need to set out very clear expectation. So we need to talk to each other about the expectations, and then agree upon what the common goal, and these expectations should be translated into learning outcomes. When a new program is implemented jointly, give feedback immediately, like in day 1 or 2, rather than waiting until the end and then giving the feedback at the end, because then the feedback is useless, or it can be used for the future program, but the students who are attending the program, they have missed their learning opportunities. Do program evaluation and share the results. When we are discussing equity, we only may think about equity of students, but equity for teachers as well. If we were inviting outsiders, then we need to think about those outsiders' professionalism, whether we are giving full support, whether we are helping our students to show respect to those part-time teachers, for instance. Further details are available in this video, but I'm not going to play it because I want to have longer discussion, Q&A. You can access it through the QR code or the link. And also you can download the materials from this website, which I'm running, where I made practical materials available. I'll finish with just one last comment about what governments can do in terms of like mobilizing the partnership of others. We can, at the government level, you can do that. First, setting a clear agenda, what you want to do, what you need, reach out, collectively discuss the risks and benefits. Then disseminate the change, not to just the schools and parents, but the whole society, because the expectation is also important in adopting a reform for in-service teachers as well as pre-service teachers. And formalize partnership, because good intentions do not always result in good results if the expectations are too different. Create events and seminars where outsider and insider can get familiarized and build rapport and friendship. Start with the small leading groups, and then give them the support to create new, create the details of the reforms. For instance, when I was when I was leading the reform of extensive reading for South Korea, what I did was I started experimenting with my own class. When I knew it was working and figured out details, I shared with the teachers who are teaching the same year, then entire school. Then I proposed the idea to the ministry, like a Seoul Metropolitan Office of Education, the section of education reform. And because I already have given the details, trial and errors, resources, experience shared within the whole school community, I could persuade the reform managers. And then the reform managers allowed me the resources, human resources, and asked me to develop materials for the entire city and the country. It was disseminated, but at the same time, I was asked to visit each region to share the practice, and then get the Q&A about the practice, share the student learning activity outcomes, the videos, etc., so that the teachers could have clear idea not just the good side of the innovation, but the problems that can be expected. And you can also invite the talents of other like grassroots teachers and give them the small fund that can show the like how best to practice it at different school contexts, and also share the materials. That is how we can work with outsiders and then involve others and then scale up a reform. I am adding this because I got this question in the last session, but I didn't answer this question. I guess, so to sum up, as we started from the beginning of the session, we want to revisit what we want in terms of teaching from teachers, review our in-service and pre-service teacher education, adjust them according to the social change. For teachers to change, they need to be aware of their current status as well as the final goalposts. Provide support according to the type of reform, whether it is just informing, persuading, practice and trial and error is required. You have to give the relevant support. And we need to learn how to work with multi-parties these days, which can involve a lot of different strategies, which is not easy, but that will pay off. You might have noticed that I have updated the slide. So if you want the most recent version, you can visit this website. And then other relevant papers that informed my presentation is available here. And the references are always given at the end. So we have about 10 minutes-ish for Q&A.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Choi. So perhaps I will begin the open forum with a question from one of our YouTube participants. So this is from one of our state universities here in the Philippines, from Zamboanga State College of Marine Sciences and Technology, Mr. Roderick Baluca. His question is, how can this education reform be effective, especially to those non-techie teachers and to those aged teachers who are not willing to shift their teaching learning during the time of pandemic?
Okay, so like a few quick tips because we don't have much time. They say the best way to persuade senior teachers is giving them success experiences. So you can't expect them to be as versatile as the like young teachers, right? So as a reform manager, I guess you need to set the target. When in Korea they first introduced the conducting lessons in English, what they did was they diagnosed the teachers in terms of their readiness. So if they were really like ready, they were left to do whatever they want to do. If the teachers were a bit aware, have some skills but need some updating, they were given training, different lengths of training depending on their skills level. For those who were really not ready, it's also dependent upon your time frame. For the changes to happen, you have to have like a long-term frame if you are trying to change the people who are just like at the basic level. And you could also use teachers in one school differently. So if you really want to, you can't ask them to do what others do, like exactly, but what you can do is you can give them the tasks they can do, but others can be taken up by young teachers, and then the role shifts. Do you know what I mean? Like the tasks that the senior teachers are good at can be given to them additionally, like taken from the young teachers, and then the digitally versatile teachers can take less of their role, but have supporting role, and then also take some teaching role as well. We also, in our university, what we are doing is we have a hub, technology hub, where the senior teachers can visit and get one-on-one training, and then the supporters even help prepare the class material one by one, like session by session at the beginning, and then they give the interface or activities that can most easily done by these senior teachers. So recently they were also sharing, like the senior teachers who didn't know anything and how they are doing, they were sharing experiences. So it means a lot of support and giving more time frame, and also assigning roles if necessary, etc.
All right, thank you for that, Dr. Choi. So for our next question, may I call Ms. Maharani Jacinto from the Department of Education, Naga, to address her question. Ms. Jacinto.
Hello. My question is about this. I am from Zamboanga del Sur, actually, Zamboanga del Sur Region 9. Okay.
Nice to meet you.
I think I already wrote my question on board. So my question is relating to the idea of what teachers should learn or acquire in this health challenge situation. It is clear that there are more to learn to be able to cope with the current situation. But it seems that things are too easy to forget, as they are also coping themselves. May we seek opinion from the speaker as to how to make these teachers more receptive, motivated, and passionate of their task, as they are not quite good as to using online, and then they need more teaching simply because everything is new to them, since this is the new normal at present. Thank you, madam.
Maybe I can share further what my university is doing. So we, as well as creating this technical hub where the assistants help individual teachers, we are creating learning community at the department level, faculty level, and then also at the university level, teaching and learning center is also giving support. But what is really helping these teachers is actually the department level support, because what we are teaching the same module, and so the people who are good at, they are sharing teaching materials, and they are sharing also the closed room meeting, because we can't do it by shaming and blaming those teachers who are not good at this technical changes. It's not their fault. It's because they had different training, and they were like, they are not, I mean, all these things are new, so we can't blame them. But having a learning group, so at the department level, the department teaching and learning leader, they are assigning learning group and then mentor for these teachers with the people who they feel more comfortable. Because we all know that it should be done. I mean, we can't do it without online, because like right now we also our campus is closed for students from outside of Hong Kong, because no flight is available right now. So we all agree that it is needed, and then it is the matter of support and acknowledging that it is not their fault, and also having somebody who can help closely share materials as well, because it is not just about the technical support. as you can see, it is a matter of pedagogy as well. You also saw that even though I'm very good at, like technical things, still I had to make mistake today because of the weather or whatever. So all these contingencies that can make teachers very uncomfortable, but we should be able to say them that it is okay. We're gonna suffer, we're gonna struggle, but we will be there. Don't worry, we will support you. That is like one way to do that. Like small learning community with closely knit group would be working like most efficiently, I guess.
All right, thank you, Dr. Choi. So we have another question here at the YouTube, one of our YouTube participants. This is with regards the current context in Hong Kong. Can you tell us how does the career of teacher progress in your country? And with regards to evaluation of schools, are they evaluated in connection to the result of teaching? This is from Mr. Anthony Liobet of the Department of Education.
Individuals' contribution is not considered in terms of school ranking or like a school evaluation, but teaching is one of the factors. The quality of teaching is one of the factors that is considered in school appraiser, and that is conducted, like the appraiser of quality of teaching is conducted not just through observation and documents, but also through talking to students, parents, general community, and then the leader of the community, because we have the school-based management system where the leader of the community is there, parent, teachers, but so we use that system, but also the appraisal, like the people who appraise, they come to school and talk to different stakeholders, as well, not just inside and outside, and then determine the quality of teaching as. And therefore, yes, it does affect the appraisal of a school, but not of individual performance, but as a group.
Okay, so since we are already out of time, so we'll just have this last question to close our open forum. This is from the Department of Education, Naga, from Ms. Maria Sheila Lagoda. We live in the VUCA world. Change happens so sudden. How can we cope up to these changes while working towards building teacher quality, thus reaching effectively our learners?
I guess one way to do that is our organizations being a learning organization. So, so you're saying you are from Department of Ed, right? So it means that the leaders of this institute, whether it is Department of Ed or university or school, we as a leader should continuously think about what we can do. So we can learn from other schools, other countries, like, these kind of seminars could be one good platform. But we also need to reflect on ourselves. And then we, as a leader, we need to talk to the community, staff members, because as one person cannot really do much. But if we collectively gather brains, we could do something better. And we have different networks. We can mobilize individuals' network. If you are a leader, you can, of a division, you can assign your division people. Maybe you can ask individuals to look at the cases of whatever country. If you are looking at the country, you want to also see like as somebody asked it at the beginning, really top OECD country or Asian country or like a remote area, so that you can build a model for different needs of different districts, regions, or schools. So you can do it. I guess the quick answer is collaboration and communication, and then also learning from others. I guess the time is too short to answer in detail. hopefully I gave some answer. Yes. I have written a paper about this, and also so I can share maybe some of the maybe you can also view the video I mentioned previously that I shared like about how to work with outsiders. Yeah, like that's the like answer at top of my mind, because I am aware that it is already 4:01.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Choi. So that ends our open forum for this webinar session. It is indeed a privilege and an honor for us to benefit from the knowledge and expertise of individuals such as Dr. Choi. As custom, before we end, may we request everyone here at Zoom to turn on their video for documentation purposes. We will have our class picture, as so we call it. So please turn on your video here at Zoom.
And also, I am looking forward to seeing you in the last session of mine, which is in October. We will have more close one-on-one interaction, I guess, there. And thank you for those attending in the YouTube. Okay. It was nice to see you all. And I really appreciate your questions and answers and those discussions, because it is really inspiring. Thank you.
Okay, all smiles, everyone.
Thank you for attending the session till the end. I know it is very difficult, a long day, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, because you come after work and then till 4 o'clock?
Around 5, yes, 5 or 6.
Oh, okay. It is a long day. I think it is a really privilege for me to be able to meet you and then be useful at least a little bit.
All right. Thank you very much as well, Dr. Choi. All right. So we would like to remind our participants to accomplish the feedback form through the link that will be flashed on the screen and typed at the chat box. This Thursday, 2 p.m. Philippine Standard Time, we will have Dr. Avinash BM, Assistant Professor of Christ University in Karnataka, India, to discuss on Education 4.0 in the Indian context. We look forward to having you all again. Kindly await our advisory to this webinar session to your respective email addresses. Again, we may remind you to please accomplish the feedback form after you leave the platform. And this will be very valuable in improving the delivery of our webinar series. And this will also serve as a further validation of your attendance. It was a pleasure hosting you this afternoon. See you all on Thursday. God bless us all.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye, ma'am.